Hi, everybody. This is Miranda Namias, and welcome to the third episode of our Woahpreneur inspirational interviews. And I'm super excited to have Jaimie Myers here. She is a really good friend of mine, and she is an awesome online business owner. She does social media management, and she is just like the coolest person ever. So I'm super excited to have her here. So, Jaimie, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Well, you pretty much said it all. My name is Jaimie. For a living, I do social media for different kinds of brands, mostly a lot of creative online businesses, but some like more local brands and stuff like that too. I live in Wisconsin with my 2 kids and my husband. I freeze half the year because I don't regulate body temperature regularly. And that's pretty much me.
I don't think I knew where you lived. So Wisconsin, I feel like everybody must be like cheese, right?
Pretty much. Cows, cheese, which is like not a lie. We do like cows and cheese. So like there is a lot of that here.
So when you kind of were talking about going on the interview with me, you mentioned that like you kind of had this pretty set idea when you were younger of like what your life was going to look like. Can you talk about like what your initial plans for your life were?
Yeah. So, I mean, sort of. So like when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be like a Hollywood actress. And then I kind of
Don't we all?
Yeah, right. Like I thought I was going to be so famous because I was in like the High School Musical, which is just sad. But and then I kind of got like really obsessed with like math and physics, and I just got really good at that stuff. And so when I started college, I was going to school like to be a mathematician, basically, which is absolutely crazy. If you know me now, you're like, okay, sure. Yeah, whatever. But I was like really into that. And I don't even really know what I was thinking I was going to do, but I always had this vision of myself, like, I don't know, single in a power suit, like at the top of a building in New York, like, I don't know, being cool, I guess. But I never envisioned like working at home, obviously, or having kids or like any of that stuff. I just thought I was going to be doing my thing.
So then something kind of happened that changed things. What happened?
So yeah, I was only about a year and a half out of high school. So I was 19 and I got pregnant, which obviously like I consented to that, and like those were like my life choices that I made. But I got pregnant and it was totally unexpected, and I didn't really think that was going to happen. And there was a lot of, inner turmoil that went along with that. Like, what am I supposed to do? This is not what my life plans were. But obviously I had my baby, and it just kind of completely changed my entire vision of my life.
So do you like how much it changed? Like, are you really happy now and you think like this Jaimie is better than the power suit Jaimie?
I think yes and no. So that's like people ask you questions like, what's your one big regret in life all the time? And like, I don't necessarily regret any of the choices I made back then, but there are parts of like that self that I have always wished had happened. Like I still like have those silly dreams of like being that power suit girl. Like if I see like a job opportunity for like a really cool company or something, I'm like, oh, I should do it. Like I still like have like kind of that piece of me, but I like the way that my life evolved, and there are so many things that I learned along the way, and there are so many things that I didn't know about myself that I know now. Like for example, the fact that like I am a creative person. I didn't think any of that about myself before, and having a baby and having to take that time away from school and away from the idea of a career gave me the opportunities to explore that about myself. And so I do think the version of myself is better than the dream version that I had before.
I like that.
Just in so many ways, because I've just learned so much about myself that I wouldn't necessarily have learned otherwise. I like to believe that even if I hadn't gone through that, I would have hopefully come like through a journey to be a creative person in the very least. But I don't know.
I like that. I think that's really real too. Like you're really happy with how your life turned out, but there's still like that little part of you that is secretly wearing a power suit.
Right. And I think that like that version that I had before is no longer viable, right? Like I
Yeah.
can't let go of anything that I have now, but like being where I am with my business and being where I am with my life and how old my kids are now, like they're 9 and 6 years old and more independent. Part of me is wondering like, what's the next step in my life? Can I make myself into a version of that power suit girl?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to be a freelancer forever, or can I build my business into something a little bit more, I don't know, real, less freelancer-ish? And so there are just so many thoughts going through my mind now about how I can create a version of that that fits within the life that I have now.
I love that so much. And I definitely think that that's possible. I mean, ever since I've met you, like I've seen you grow over time, and I think you're there. Like your business is at a really good spot and you have so much potential. So I'm like super excited to be like, where is Jaimie gonna go? Like
I'm at like a super sweet spot right now where I think I have to make some like very big decisions about what direction I want things to go in. And it's like over the past probably couple of weeks, I was feeling like really down about it, like scared and full of fear, full of just like the fear of failure, the fear of what's next, the fear of making decisions, the fear of success, all those fears just like bundled into one. And it gets you really down because you're just not sure what to do. And then I don't know what happened, but over maybe the last week, I've started to kind of come into a comfort level with the idea that I have to make decisions either way. So I just have to get comfortable with that, and I can take my time with them, and I don't necessarily have to like be doing something tomorrow. I can take time to really research and plan and come up with ideas and work towards what I want. And I'm always like the kind of person who's like, I want things now. I'm not that patient. And I just like want things to happen right away. I'm like full of big ideas all the time, but I have to kind of slow down and make those ideas come together before I can actually make the big decisions. And so that's kind of where I am right now.
well, it sounds like you're in a much better spot. And I definitely think that, like, I don't know when people are listening now, but it's getting towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that can be like a stressful, pressure filled time where you feel like 2018 is coming up. Like, what's 2018 like gonna do for me? And then you feel like you have to make all these big changes and decisions. So, but it sounds like I like your idea of kind of slowing it down and not really feeling like you need to jump into that, because like I don't know, it can be good to kind of feel it out and take your time with those decisions. You don't need to make like a crazy choice right now.
Yeah. So that like the start of New Year's always get people really anxious because they feel like they have to be like a brand new person in the new year. And that's just like not realistic. But also it doesn't have to be a fresh start because it's January. Like there can be fresh ideas happening in February or March or July. Like whenever things happen, they happen. And the start of a new year doesn't have to necessarily be when that happens. And I definitely think that the decisions that I'm facing are going to take me more than just December to figure out. And so, and to like plan for both like mentally and emotionally, but also financially. It just so happens that this happens to be at the end of the year for me. But I'm actually really thankful because during the holidays is a time where like generally it's a little bit harder to like really buckle down and hustle and do a lot of work because you do have obligations outside of work. And like, for example, I have kids who have school off for a long period of time and we don't have a nanny. And so, I mean, we just never have. And so it's actually good that I'm going to like have that time to like reflect and slow down. And I actually kind of did a similar thing last year, which was really nice, is that I took like a couple of full weeks of just like still did work for clients and things like that that was necessary. But like in terms of the growth within my own business, it wasn't really like full speed ahead. It was more like, okay, let's dial it back and do the reflection and figure things out and give myself the space to actually do that and creatively come up with ideas. Because I'm not a person that can just like be creative all the time. I have to actually like go into the world and like slow down and experience life in order for that to really happen.
Oh, I like that. So kind of speaking of which, can you kind of go back a little bit and explain like what made you switch from like, okay, mathematician Jaimie to like
Right.
this super creative Jaimie? Like you change your major to communications, and just tell us about that process of like you have a baby and you're still going to school, and like how you were still able to graduate, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like how that all like that journey happened.
Yeah. So when I was pregnant, I was still in school for a full semester and, or no, for like 2 semesters. And so the first semester of that, I was taking like physics classes, advanced physics classes. And I was kind of at a point where not only was I distracted, and so the work was harder, but also I think for me, it wasn't necessarily the right path. And like, I don't even want to say like I wasn't smart enough, because I probably was, but I didn't care enough to put in the work to be good at those classes, and to like, I didn't have it in me. And I mean, if you're taking physics and math advanced in college, like they're very difficult and take a lot of time, and it just wasn't in me. And so the second semester, I shifted my focus and I thought, oh, maybe I'll go to business school, which I don't know what I was doing. But and then I took like accounting 101 or something, which was like the required class to get into the business school at the university that I attended. And I didn't do well in that class. I think also because I was distracted, but also I'm just not super, for a person that's a business owner to say this is really weird, but I'm not that business minded. I think in terms of like feelings and emotions and creativity. And I didn't know that until I took that class, like, and I started thinking about that. And so like, I didn't do well enough in that class to get into business school. So then I think by that time I was at a point where I needed to take a break and have the baby. And I took like a full year of school off. And when it was time to go back, I had enough college at that point where it was like, kind of like, you have to declare your major. You can't just keep taking nothing classes, or like, what do they call them, even electives? Like there comes a point where like, if you're going to be in school, you have to choose a major. And so I can't remember who asked me, but somebody was like, well, if you could just do like any job, what would you want to do? And I was like, maybe like, I don't know, maybe like a travel writer is what I said. I was like, that would be so awesome. And I still think that would be awesome, to be fair. Like, it's a pretty sweet job. And I was like, well, what major goes along with that? And the logical answer was journalism. And so I applied to journalism school and I got in, which was not really a surprise to me because I had always been pretty good at writing and things like that. I just, for whatever reason, had gotten off of that path. And like, even when I was a little kid, my like dream job was to be like a children's book writer and illustrator. But I had gotten off that path, as most of us do. We like dream of other things. And so I went to journalism school, and then I had another baby while I was in school, and I was only ever going part-time to school when I had kids. So it was just 2 classes every semester, and it took me a lot of years. But I did finally finish. And that's kind of how that evolved. It just kind of like happened. And then since I was only going to school part-time, I had like babies. I had like a lot of free time. And this is kind of the period of time when blogs started to become very popular. I would read like all the mom blogs and all the photography blogs, and everybody was like doing such cool things. There was like Design Sponge and Meg Dirksen, and so many people just putting out their creativity. And I remember like starting a blog myself. It wasn't good. Please don't try to find it. I have a couple of old blogs out there on the internet. But
I do too. It's okay.
It's kind of funny to like go back and read them, because it shows like that evolution. Not that I'm like at like a peak now or anything, but from there to here is definitely a lot of improvement in terms of my knowledge. And it's interesting to actually see other people who are just starting with their blogs that are like so much more ahead of the time than I was.
Oh my gosh, right?
And it's like, you don't even know how ahead you are and how much information you have. Like back when we were on Blogger, like nobody knew anything. Like we were just like, wow, I'll do this and I'll put this wacky thing in my sidebar and we'll have stickers and I don't know. And so I got like really obsessed with blogs and I wanted to learn how to do photography. And so I bought a digital camera, like a really nice digital camera, and I learned photography and I had all this other free time. I learned to do Photoshop and I was just like always very hyper aware of all the creativity and stuff going on the internet. And very inspired by it. And I tried so many different things. Like I didn't shy away from anything. And that's kind of an interesting thing too, is I think a lot of people now that are starting blogs are like, well, this is going to be my one thing. And then they grow out of it and they get really scared. But it takes a lot of people many, many tries and many different interests to get to a place where they finally feel like they're passionate. And so that's kind of how that evolution started. I mean, it wasn't supernatural. It just kind of happened.
So you went from there and then you became like the social media expert. So like what made you choose social media after you had kind of gotten started in the blogging and online business world?
In journalism school, there's kind of two tracks that you can do. You can do both, but one is like reporting, like specifically like newspaper writing or like broadcast journalism, that kind of stuff. And the other one is strategic communication, which is basically advertising. And so I chose strategic communication strictly because I had originally wanted to do reporting, but a teacher had told me like, you have a writing voice for strategic communication. Like you naturally are going to be good at this. And so I believed them. I was like, sure, okay. And I didn't know that about myself before. And so I just kind of went down that route and I had some really good professors. I was really into advertising and I had considered going into like traditional advertising. But because I had kids, going into advertising is kind of insane of a process because the wages are very low to start and the hours are very long. And that's just kind of a reality of the advertising world.
Yeah.
But digital advertising is not necessarily the same. So right when I graduated, I had a friend who I knew, she was a blogger, but she also did some social media and she was looking for an assistant. And so I was like, sure, I'll do it. Work from home, easy. And the pay was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't good. It was pretty low, but I didn't have any other option. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And so we worked together for a while. And then I kind of just decided that I felt like I wanted to branch out on my own and I wanted to do my own thing. I had always kind of had that leader quality in me. And so working with another person, just the two of us, was for me kind of hard because I always wanted to be the leader, but really she was. And so I just kind of branched out on my own. And I hate even saying it, but like I grew up on social media. Like I had Facebook before I was out of high school. I just kind of grew up with it and it was very natural for me. And that doesn't make me an expert in itself, which I think is something that needs to be said. Just growing up with social media does not make you an expert, but I was very passionate about some of the things that are important on social media, like writing. I had done a lot of writing in college as a journalism major, and I had learned photography and I had learned design, and those are kind of all the elements of social media. And I really got my experience from working with clients one-on-one. Like there's not a whole, they don't really teach social media in universities. Still to this day, they don't even really teach it. And it's kind of a job where you learn through experience. And so that's where the experience comes from, but also just being obsessed with it also. I mean, there are people that care about lots of things and there are people that care about one thing. And so I kind of just decided like, I have all kinds of other interests, but I need to be very intentional about learning as much as I can about social media if I want to be seen as an authority and an expert. And social media changes constantly. Like you could never know everything. Nobody could. There's not a single person that could ever be like, I'm the expert on everything. Like not even Gary Vee. Sorry.
Broad statement.
Sorry, dude.
I think that that's really smart. And I really like the thing that you said about like, just because you grew up with social media doesn't make you an expert, that is like quote material. Like, I 100% agree with that.
It probably gives you a leg up as to somebody who didn't grow up with social media, but there's so much strategy that goes behind it, and there's so much creativity and thought. It's a whole nother layer.
I mean, it's kind of like saying, like, just because I grew up with the internet means I know how to design websites. Like,
right. Or like, just because I had a bike when I was a kid, I should be a BMX bike rider. Like,
yeah,
no, you had a dirt bike, but like, you're not very good at it. And so, I mean, you could really use that argument for like anything. I ate food when I was a kid, so I should be a chef.
Just to kind of wrap it up, do you have any like suggestions or advice for other like young moms who are interested in like possibly starting their own online business or who are just getting started out? Like, what would you tell them?
A couple of things. First is like, you're probably going to fail at like 4 things. And so being afraid of failure is just a really good way for you to procrastinate the actual failure itself, which is not a really fun thing for you to say out loud. Because I always want to like instill people with hope and like happiness and whatever. But the fact of the matter is like, you have so much to learn if you want to start an online business that you have to go through all of those.
Failure is part of the process. I mean,
right.
I think the hope comes at the end of it. Like, first there's failure and then there's a success.
Like, it's basically inevitable. And even once you get those successes, you still keep failing.
Yep.
And so it's just a matter of kind of getting comfortable with that. And I guess the second thing I would say is like, don't be afraid to evolve and change. You don't like, you pick one thing. If you're like, I want to be a lifestyle blogger, which is really cool. Maybe in another year, you're like, I'm so over this. And it's okay to just like change. Like, nobody's judging you. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching you. Nobody is like judging you as much as you're judging yourself. And so just being brave enough to make those choices and to do what makes you happy, I think is super important. I think another thing is to learn as much as you can about like different types of things. So for example, like, I never set out on a foot to like learn about social media. Like, I learned photography, and then I learned about graphic design, and then I learned about, and it all just kind of like evolved into being a social media strategist, and it never was the intention. And so I think it's important to diversify your strengths and what your skill set is. It's good to know more about a bunch of different things and to take them one at a time than it is to like try to jump across all those things and become the thing without all the skills to back it up.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes you like, it might even surprise yourself, like what you're interested in. And I think that's why they make you, like, going back to the whole college thing, why they make you take like 2 years of electives before you have to declare a major. Like, it's kind of the same thing in business. Take all these elective classes in photography and social media, and then like what you're naturally good at will be kind of a byproduct of all the skills that you've learned and the things that you're passionate about. And then like, that's kind of the path that you should take. You're right. Don't try to jump over that.
Yeah. You can't skip learning all the skills to get to like the end product. And like, most people aren't like millionaires in a day or even like 5-figure business owners in a day. And so, I mean, some people grow up knowing exactly what they want to be when they grow up, and they're like, I'm going to be a doctor, and then they become a doctor, and then they live their whole life as a doctor, and they're super happy. But most people don't have that journey, and I think it's important for people to realize that like, most people don't know what they're doing, or they haven't always known what they were doing.
Especially creatives,
because a lot of creatives are like very multi-interested. So like, I love fashion and I love graphic design, but I'm not a fashion blogger and I'm not a graphic designer. But I still love those things and they inspire me. It's okay to be interested in a bunch of things. And it's okay for like things that you're interested in to not be your job too.
Yes.
Which I think is something I struggled with for a long time. Like, as a blogger, when I just considered myself like a blogger, I thought like that I had to like be a certain thing. It just never worked out because I was interested in so many things.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your advice. I think it was super inspirational, and I just loved like learning more about you, and you were so honest and real. So thank you so much. And tell everybody about the roadmap.
Yeah. So if anybody knows me well, they know that Instagram is my favorite social media platform. So I love them all. I love Instagram because it marries my two favorite things, photography and writing. And with stories now, I've come to love it even more because I get to know people on a much deeper level than I ever did. But I created an Instagram roadmap for people who are either just starting out with Instagram or they're feeling frustrated by Instagram because it has changed a lot over the past year. So I created the roadmap. You can find it at my website. I'm sure that she'll link it above, but it's JaimieAMyers.com/Instagram roadmap.
Yay,
my name is hard to spell, so it's like I almost have to be like, you have to link it.
I promise I will link it.
Thank you so much.